Personally, I never got into the God of War series. I played the first one at some point, but after that I let the rest of the games pass me by. I lead with that up front so you know it's not coming from a place of delusion or franchise loyalty when I say that God of War on PS4 is a crowning achievement, and without doubt one of the best games of this generation. Many years after brutally murdering his way to the top of Mount Olympus, Kratos is now living a relatively quiet life in the land of the Norse gods. After the passing of his wife, he and his son Atreus begin a journey to fulfill her last request of scattering her ashes atop the highest peak in Midgard. The journey proves to be long and full of obstacles, especially when some notable figures start to show a particular interest in the former Godslayer. You don't need to have played any previous God of War titles to understand what's going on, as the game does an expert job of dropping hints and providing just enough information to get new players up to speed. Even though there are bigger events going on in the world that are engrossing, and the mythology of Midgard is exhaustively fleshed out, the heart of the narrative is the relationship between father and son. From the very start, their dynamic is believable, and it's obvious that while the pair do care for each other, their conflicting personalities make their feelings hard to express. Kratos is humanized more here than he's ever been before, with his brand of tough love coming across as cruel but also necessary given the dangers the pair encounter. And this conflicts with his son, who has a youthful optimism and sense of wonder at the world around him. Their bond, while rocky at times, is clear and developed exceptionally throughout the entire game. God of War is known for its hard-hitting combat, and that's still intact here. While it seems pretty simple to start, and Kratos has a very limited weapon selection, things get considerably deeper as you progress and unlock new movesets, different special attacks, and additional perks from new gear. You can't just button mash your way through encounters, as enemies will block, dodge, attack from behind, and tend to have different weaknesses and resistances. You might experience some growing pains as new threats punish your unfamiliarity with their behaviors, but once you figure out how each one works, you'll be brutally dispatching them before long. The only issues I have with these battles is that finishing moves repeat themselves often, as each enemy type only has one unique kill animation, and in the late game I found myself getting occasionally stun-locked by repeat attacks from particular baddies, but these really are just nitpicks as the combat is immensely satisfying and only keeps improving the further you get. The star of the show is the Leviathan axe. It doesn't matter where you last left it or how far away you throw it, the axe will always find its way back to its owner, and it's insanely satisfying each and every time it slams into Kratos' waiting hand. Not only is this useful in fights, but it also contributes heavily to environmental puzzles, being used to break barriers, freeze gears in place, and cut through troublesome vines. These brief brain teasers strike a great balance of being simple enough to figure out quickly, but require just enough thought so you feel satisfied when overcoming them. While it's not incorrect to label the game as open world, it doesn't just drop you onto a huge continent. It's more pathways that guide you towards your main goal, with any deviations leading to collectibles, and a few wide open environments you're free to explore and tackle side quests in. Going off the beaten path is always rewarded in some way, with currency, crafting materials, upgrades, or new pieces of lore, and you're able to come back to an area later to find what you've missed, or to open pathways previously blocked to you with new abilities. It took me roughly 30 hours to reach the credits, which included finishing the story, doing the majority of side quests, and finding a good chunk of collectibles, but I can easily see that time being almost doubled if you decide to see and do everything on offer. An epic masterwork is really the only way to adequately describe Kratos and Son's wild and wacky road trip. It's one of the most gorgeous games ever made. The land of Midgard is insanely fleshed out with rich mythology. The core relationship at its center is expertly developed, and the combat and exploration are both deeply engaging in their own ways. Yes, there are things that I could complain about if I'm really grasping, but they're rendered pretty much meaningless by the excellence of everything else. If you're a fan of action games, you should play God of War. If you're a fan of in-depth storytelling and world-building, you should play God of War. If you have a PlayStation 4, any model of it, period, you should play God of War. God of War gets a 10 out of 10.